Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. I am joined today by a guest from the Twitterverse and from the Twitchverse and so many different verses that there's just too many to count. I am joined by Ann Palmer of Qyjari's Curious Crafts, which you may or may not have seen on Twitch, but I hopefully after you listen to this episode, you will join her on the Twitch channel. Welcome to the podcast, Ann.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you here. I know that you were recommended to me by a mutual friend that I've spoken with in the past, Kimberly or Amelia, depending on how you know her. And I'm so excited that we got to finally connect.
Yes, I'm so glad.
So I wanted to talk. We're all about fandoms here, and as I mentioned, you've got some stuff on Twitch that you do, and we'll definitely be talking about that later. But the thing that you and I both are cover, I guess, is Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yes, I love Dungeons and Dragons.
How did you first get into playing Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, everyone laughs. Well, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons during the second edition. So it's been a long time. We played 2E and then some advanced and didn't play 4th edition, and then I took a long break, got married, had kids, and now I'm back with 5th edition. And so far I have to say it is my favorite.
What was it that first drew you to Dungeons and Dragons? I know for me, it was I always used to read like fantasy novels as a kid. And then one year my mom was working in the mall. Like she had one of those little like kiosks of like stuff that, people went to go buy. And I would go with her. But the only thing I could do if I didn't want to be bored was go to like B. Dalton or Walden Books and sit my hiney down there in the fantasy section. And I stumbled across like the complete book of elves. That was the first book I ever touched for a role-playing game. And it was like my first purchase of a role-playing game. And that brought me into gaming at some point. I never played it, but it was like that first taste of what was to come.
I have to say that I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons through association. I was dating someone who then became my husband, and he had a group of friends who played every Saturday. They played, and I thought it was fascinating. And I remember one of them had these really fancy electronic rollers, and that was like new and innovative at the time. This is just back when computers were just started coming out, and you would play, the way you played games on computers was through DOS commands. And I am old. And they would play with these electronic dice rollers that was kind of cool. They were kind of innovative. And they had these huge maps, and this DM who was just committed to role playing, and that drew me in. And then we tried to play for a bit after we had children, and it just became too much. So there was a long break. And then I was later introduced to the 5th edition by my younger brothers, who also play and played then too, but they're much younger than I am. So they started playing, I guess, back in 2016. 2015. They'd always been playing, but they invited me to play with them. Now they live in Florida, so it's quite a trek for me to go play a game with them, but we usually try to meet up 2 or 3 times a year and have some game sessions that last all day, and it's a lot of fun.
Oh, I miss those days. I mean, when I played in college, which is when I officially got to actually play D&D for the first time, it was the 2nd edition. And it was right before the 3rd edition came out. Mm-hmm. So we played it for like 2 months. And then it was like, okay, 3rd edition's here. We have to convert characters and start over and everything. But man, those sessions of, okay, it's Friday night at like 5 o'clock and we're going to play until about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. everyone's going to go to sleep, and then we start again after breakfast.
Yep. That's exactly what we would do. We would wake up in the morning, 10ish or so, and have a brunch, and then start playing by noon. And then we would play till midnight and take breaks for snacks and dinner, probably pizza usually, and just play for 12 hours straight. And I loved it. And I still do. We still try to do that I'm going down there in September. We're going to play a couple days worth of that in September.
That is going to be awesome. I miss those days. I haven't been at a table for close to 9 years, I think. After my first son was born, it was like, okay, you know, I can still get out and play. But then after the twins were born, after that, it was like my time is pretty much gone now, and I'm relegated to like the computer for the most part at night. But even then, it's like just scheduling time or finding time to play is just it's so hard nowadays.
Yeah, and I resisted playing online, and I still haven't, except for some one-shots with Nerdsmith. But I have started to embrace the idea of playing online, and I'm actually going to start a new program on my Twitch stream in the fall called D&D with the Banana Brothers. Those are my brothers. And we are going to start streaming us playing Dungeons and Dragons with a brand new campaign that I've been writing.
Awesome. That's going to be cool.
I'm excited about it because there's a definite quirk to the characters that they're building right now. I won't reveal that right now, but I think that the audience is going to love the idea. We'll see what happens.
Exactly. Now, whenever I have like D&D players on, especially D&D people that have been playing D&D for like a decent amount of time, I always love to find out, like, do you find yourself drifting towards a certain class or a certain type of like race, as far as like, you know, like, do you like elves? Do you like to play dwarves? Do you like to play rangers or spellcasters? Like, what is your jam when you get to play?
I fall into the definite trope of Wood Elf Ranger. That's my favorite character. I have always played one. That is my main character now in the game that I play with my brothers. I have opened up a little bit and started playing a human monk. What else have I played? Oh, I started playing a bard. I think she's half elf. I haven't played her in a while. But yeah, I definitely fall into the standard Wood Elf Ranger. And that really started because my main character in World of Warcraft is a hunter. And I really enjoyed that, and I loved having the pet. So I'm a Beastmaster Ranger. That's my thing. That's my jam.
That's your jam. I was going to ask because, you know, there's always like the things that people gravitate towards. Like, I always gravitate towards halflings. It's like, I love my little short halfling people. I consider myself, if I was anything if I was going to be in the fantasy world, like that would totally be me, like kicking back in a hobbit hole and just eating and drinking. But I love like the variations that different worlds have done with like that halfling group. Just I mean, like with Dark Sun, they're like cannibals, and in Eberron, they like the Talenta halflings ride dinosaurs and use them as pack animals. So it's like, I love that there's now a variation from like that Tolkien-esque halfling.
Yes, the Hobbit.
Jam.
Yeah.
Now you started off back in like second edition, and it's usually rare for me to find somebody that's gone back as far as that. What do you like? Because I know you said that you like fifth edition the best now. What is your thing that you like about fifth edition over like some of those previous editions?
Honestly, it's been so long since I played the previous editions, I probably couldn't play them again. But I would say that the rules to me are more clear cut. I think it's more player friendly. And this is just my opinion, but I really enjoy it much better. I think it's maybe because I'm older and I have I have matured into someone who can kind of get into it more than I did at the time. And to me, it seemed ultra complicated. So I think the 5th edition rules are a little more player friendly.
Okay. I know when I when I was playing 2nd edition, even like, and I was in college. I considered myself relatively like intelligent, but when it came time for combat, I would roll the d20 and be like, just tell me if I hit it or not.
Right.
I cannot do Thaco at all. I can't do it. Don't ask me to do it. And I think that was like the biggest thing when they switched to 3rd edition, is like, I can do it now. I can do the math.
Right. Math is a little easier.
Math hard. Game good, math hard.
Right.
I mean, I did appreciate like things like weapon speed. I mean, like for like initiative or combat or whatever it was used for, but at the same time, it's like, okay, you know, I like knowing what I can do rather than relying on. And I always felt bad, you know, tell me if I hit. I'm here for like the storytelling, and then I guess like crunching the monsters if I hit them.
Right. And that's a lot of it. People, they enjoy the role play of it, or they enjoy the murder hobo side of it. And it's hard to, it's hard to play with them all grouped together when you just want to talk to the merchant and not kill them dead. But I think that was my biggest thing is, just tell me if I hit. You're absolutely right. Just tell me if I'm just going to roll this, and just tell. Or at the time we had, like I said, we had these handheld controllers that you could just hit the button and it would roll for you. I don't even know what they're called. I don't even know if you could find those still.
I don't know. Now we got these fancy dancy phones and iPads
Yeah.
and all sorts of stuff. I remember when we were playing 4th edition and people started bringing like their phones or like their iPads to the table. I used to get so angry about it. It's like, can you please like stop looking at your websites,
right,
and focus on the game? Like I used to get so angry about it. And
we
now,
have a rule at our table about those too.
yeah, now it's almost like you have to have them just to like reference stuff like your character sheet and all sorts of stuff if you use like D&D Beyond or
Yes, and I do use D&D Beyond. I am very fortunate. My husband has purchased all the subscriptions there for me. So as a gift, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so these are really nice perks for me.
Yeah, it is nice. And I know even with like because I know you said that you didn't play 4th edition.
Right.
And I got to play it, and they had the character builder for it. And at a certain time, because there's so much errata coming out and so many different options, like there's no way to really build a current character based off of the books. You had to do it. The character builder was the only way. And
right.
technology at the table.
Well, we allow technology at the table for things like D&D Beyond or whatever reference you want to use for your character. But if you're checking Twitter or you're checking Facebook or you're just checking whatever, then no, thank you. Pay attention. And I DM some games, and my brother Tranquil DMs other games, and he and I both will reward disadvantage on the next combat roll if we catch you playing with you. I mean, we can take it out on our players if they're not paying attention to the game. So
exactly, like pay attention.
Yep.
And I know I was on a Twitter post earlier this morning, and it was about like speed of combat because like even now, I guess, because I haven't played 5th, but I've watched enough 5th to know, and I played 3.5 and 4th, where it's like, man, combat just takes forever, like 2.5, 3 hours sometimes, just depending on like party level and how many people you have and
right.
how the dice are. And I like that a lot of games have kind of moved, not to where combat's not important, but they make it where when you are in combat, like it's an important thing of combat. It's not just like random encounter time.
Right. We have a sort of a rule about when you're next on deck. And I know that's something they use on Critical Role. So-and-so, you're on deck. You need to be prepared. You need to be paying attention and not checking your phones or whatever, and to know what you want to do. It's a little more relaxed for newer players, obviously. There's so much they could do. But if you are a seasoned player, or if you've been playing for a long enough time with that character, you should know about what you want to do. And so we allow 2 or 3 minutes per turn, I would say. I know that combat's 6 seconds, but you get 2 or 3 minutes to think about what you want to do. And once that passes and you haven't decided what you want to do, the DM's going to be like, well, let's just go to the next one. You sit out this turn.
Yep.
So I think it's important to keep the combat going, but it also, for newer players, they need to be helped along, I think. And we do have a lot of new players that we introduce to the game here and there, and there's a little more patience and compassion with helping them through it, because it'll just turn them off if they're having to make quick decisions.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's, as long as the newer players are being attentive and everything else, but I know that it takes some time to get situated with knowing your character and everything else. But yeah, when people check out, it's like, dang, pay attention. It's
Right.
combat time. Like, I can't sit here for 4 hours just doing that's the whole thing is combat. And it's like, I can't
Right.
do it.
Well, and both Tranquil's game and my game are homebrewed, and we know how much time and effort we put into it. And it's nice when your players appreciate the effort that you put into it and to pay attention to it. And that's why we are each other's favorite player in our games, because we know as the DM how much work the other puts into it, and the respect that you should give them for that effort and their time. So we're always ready when it's our turn on deck. This is what I want to do. Now, my turn lasts, a minute, whereas some other players want that attention and last 3 minutes, but that's okay. We're getting through it.
Absolutely. Now, I know you mentioned homebrew. Do you prefer playing like in a homebrew game, or do you prefer like a setting from like Wizards or somewhere else?
Do you know that I have only ever played the first chapter or first small arc of Strahd? And that's the only pre-written campaign I have ever played in. Everything I've ever played in has been homebrew.
That's how it was for me for a long time. Like, all of our 3rd edition games were homebrew, except for, we did a 3-5 game where it was in Eberron, but it wasn't like Eberron following any modules.
Right.
And then the first time I played 4th, it was following their like Scales of War, organized like campaign type style play. But it wasn't like tied. I think it was tied somewhere, but I've never played a module. I've never gone through like a storybook arc from anybody. Is I don't know. I guess I'm an outlier, or it's just how it was when we were playing.
Yeah. And I enjoy the homebrew because it's not just the homebrew content and the storyline, it's also some homebrew monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Or NPCs. And my brothers, with whom I play most often, they know Dungeons and Dragons backward and forward. So if I describe a beholder, for example, they'll immediately know what to do. But in my world, they may not know what to do, because my version of a beholder might be different than what they're used to. So it keeps them on their toes as trying not to metagame and learn something new about whatever that part of the world is, or that creature. It could be anything. I don't make it crazy, of course, but it does allow them a little more surprise in the campaign.
Yeah, and that's always a good thing, especially after you've played a couple of years, or especially if you've jumped onto like the DM side of things, and you're like, oh, well, I know exactly what this character can do, or this NPC or this monster can do, and you're like, what's the risk versus reward if I do X, Y, or Z? So with Dungeons and Dragons, I know you had mentioned it during the talk about on deck and stuff. is a show that a lot of people are really passionate about, and I have to say, I mean, I try to consume as much content as I can, and I haven't tackled it yet because there's just so much out there. But the Critical Role show is
Oh, yeah.
something that you're into.
Yes. I was introduced to Critical Role by my son, Drake. He goes by Drake on my Twitch. He said, "You're going to love this." And I watched the first couple episodes and I was hooked. So I have watched the first season. I think I'm on my third go round.
Oh my gosh.
But I can keep it on my computer monitor while I craft.
Okay.
So while I'm crafting, it's just background noise for me, but I really enjoy all of the storytelling, all of the descriptions. It does help me with my terrain. Some of my terrain that I build is actually based on some of the parts of the world of Tel'Dorai.
What is it about Critical Role that brought you in, that hooked you after you got recommended it from your son?
I would say the storytelling. I wanted to know where that story was going. And so I was hooked with that first visit to Craghammer. It was, to me, the quintessential storytelling by Mercer.
Do you have I know that they have like the core group of players, and I'm aware that there's like two different sets now. There's like the Mighty Nine is the current group.
Yes, and
but
Vox
then,
Machina.
And Vox Machina. Do you have like a favorite player or a favorite character that you enjoy listening to or watching their actions?
It's funny, the first season, my favorite is Laura Bailey because of Vex. She plays a half-elf ranger. So, of course, that's going to be my favorite. I mean, they're all fantastic, and I love listening to all of them for their different quirks and foibles. And what's funny is I kept an open mind for the second season. I didn't know who was playing what, but when they were introduced and I listened to the voices and I saw their character quirks and sort of their characteristics and their craziness, I fell in love once again with Laura Bailey and playing Jester. So I guess I do have a favorite.
What is it about? I mean, I know with Vex, there's like that instant connection of Ranger,
Yes,
and whatnot. What was it about Jester that drew you to that character?
I think that she portrays Jester as very innocent and naive, but I really think deep down Jester's going to prove that there's a lot more to her than meets the eye. And that's what I enjoy. I'm going to enjoy watching her story unfold.
Being unfamiliar with Critical Role, I mean, I'm familiar with like some of the people that do it, and the huge community that has been formed around it, because holy cow, like the Kickstarter was like insane.
Yep.
Like I still think about it. It's like, it blows my mind of just how many people are out there, and then how many people are like, here, take my money.
Yes.
It blew me away. But one of the things I always ask when I talk to people who are like really invested in Critical Role is like, where should I get started? Should I start with the first season, or should I jump in and start with like the second season? Is it better to watch like the videos on demand, or should I listen to it like as a podcast?
Well, time is going to be your biggest factor in deciding what you should do. If you have a ton of time, of course, I would recommend either watching or listening to the first season. Now, watching is better in my opinion because you can see some of their rolling eyes or some of the motions that they make. It's not something that carries into a podcast, but the podcasts I've listened to on trips is certainly beneficial for getting the storyline through. They did have some audio issues on the first few episodes. Of course, they were just getting started on Geek and Sundry, so they had to set up a studio full of D&D players. They hadn't done that before. So there were some audio issues that worked themselves out after a few episodes, and players weren't always there. Sometimes they had work commitments or other commitments, and they weren't always there. And that's changed now. They're there unless they're sick. They're there every Thursday. So if it's if you have a time crunch or a time constraint and can't listen to even on the podcast, I would go with starting with season 2. It's going to be very different. And I think there's 1 or 2 slight references to season 1, but they have been very good about leaving season 1 out of season 2 as far as references or Easter eggs. So you could probably start with season 1, but you're already 70 episodes behind.
And that's the thing, because it's like, okay, 70 episodes by like what? The average is 3.5 or 4 hours, right?
4+, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, man, it's like I always equate it to the TV show Supernatural. And it's like Supernatural has like 15 seasons by 20 some episodes. Each episode's about an hour long. Like, just getting through that, I would have to stop like everything else that I'm doing
Right.
to try to catch up. But it's this it's this iconic time period of Dungeons and Dragons to have something as popular as a show like Critical Role,
Right.
where who would have ever thought 20, 30 years ago that people would go to a convention to meet people that play Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I don't want to say like they don't do anything else.
No, right.
But like that's the draw for most people, is going to see them because they play D&D.
I think it blew them away too. I mean, their reaction to some of the cons that they went to early on and comic book store signings blew them away. They were just as shocked as anyone that the popularity of watching players play D&D online became so immense.
It's just I always think about like growing up in middle school and high school and being like the nerdy kid and picked on, oh, you play D&D and you got your nerdy books, and then even in college, like when we'd play out in like the little like student union center, and it's people would look at us and be like, oh yeah, okay. But now it's gotten to be just more acceptable, socially acceptable. You hear people talking about, like, even famous actors, they talk about playing D&D, or Stephen Colbert just played Dungeons and Dragons recently.
Yes.
With Matthew Mercer.
Yep, that was for Red Nose Day. You could probably tune in and watch some of their one-shots that they've done, just to kind of get a feel for how they all act together. And you could even watch season 1 one-shots. There's some battle royales and things like that. Now, there might be some backstory that you'll be missing as far as any kind of references for them to say a certain thing or their relationship to each other. But those are interesting, and they don't really follow along with the same storyline as the first campaign. Mm-hmm. Same with the second campaign. If there's any one shots, some of the other games they play, not Dungeons and Dragons, but like Honey Heist or some of the other ones that the cast has taken turns to be a dungeon master, have been very interesting and fun just to see their interaction with each other.
Well, it's definitely it's on my list of things I want to do, but it at the same time, it's just making that commitment of, I got to be present to make sure I'm listening and watching and being able to be there, so that way I don't miss stuff. And it's like, I've invested so much time and I missed something. Right,
exactly.
Oh my goodness. And I know that they've got, like, I think because I have that campaign setting that was published, the Tal'Darai that Matthew Mercer published, and I was like, okay, like, this is interesting. I had no clue about anything that Critical Role was about at that time. It's like somebody recommended the book to me and I bought it. It's like, okay.
Yeah. A lot of good artwork in that book too.
God, I need to pull it off my shelf and look at it. I keep buying role playing books and I just shelve them. It's like, I want them, and I want to support the people making them. It's like, okay, now I still don't have time to game, but I have the books.
My husband laughs at me because I insist on having all of the books as well as access on D&D Beyond, and he's very Mr. Computers and electronics, and can't we get that online instead of in a book? I'm a crack open the book and break the spine type of person, and he is a let's just find the PDF. So so it was a sweet surprise when he not only got me the D&D Beyond books online, but I have all the other Player's Handbook and Monster Manual. And what's funny is he used to play Dungeons and Dragons. I still drag him into a couple games here and there. He doesn't have time either. He works a lot of hours. But I have all my books sitting right next to his second, third, fourth edition books in our D&D room. So he knows about it. He very supportive of my crazy streaming and D&D playing to a point. But he definitely is more of the online part of it. But I do love having the book. So I do have the Tell to Ride book, and I have all the supplements, and I love referencing a lot of especially the monster books when I'm creating my campaigns.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's definitely something like I love the books too. And that's the one thing I've gotten in trouble with, like doing Kickstarters. It's like, well, I want to give you my money, but I don't want to give you enough money for the book, so I'll get it on PDF, and then eventually, like I have an email address just for like my Kickstarters. I have 300 emails.
Oh my goodness.
Of stuff that like I need to download or just updates, and it's like even when I download the PDF, I don't even look at it. It's just like, okay, I've got the PDF of the thing I backed, and
right.
Maybe one day I'll look at it, let alone like ever play it. It's because that's the one thing I always find is that, getting a gaming group together, it's generally, okay, we'll play Dungeons and Dragons and then try to like move you into some other game.
Right. Well, and that's what we're finding is, and I guess it's not just our issue that we're dealing with, is just finding the time to get together. Now, I know I have a distance issue with not only my brothers living in Florida and the 7 hours that I'd have to travel to play a game, but my son is the one who was DMing, my older son, DMing the Ravenloft game, The Curse of Strahd. And he lives 2 hours away. So just finding time in the schedule for everyone to get together and drive down and just play 2 hours away is difficult. And the last time we played was in March. It might have been February. So, that's why I said I've only played that one chapter of Curse of Strahd, because that's what he's doing, and that's as far as we've gotten. We haven't scheduled another day to play. Although I did start DMing a group of 14-year-olds recently. My second youngest daughter just had her 14th birthday, and she wanted a Dungeons and Dragons party. This is the second D&D party she's had. Once she was a few years younger, but she had a bunch of friends that wanted to play or wanted to learn to play or have played before and just wanted to keep playing. And so I introduced them to some of my homebrew, and we played probably 9 hours one Saturday for her birthday, and they loved it so much they want to come back. I'm like, well,
oh, that's awesome.
That's a lot of work for 14-year-olds. That's a lot of work. But we had a good time, and she loved it. So it's easier. It's definitely easier to schedule time with the kids. It's the adults. You have to work around their work schedules and other commitments.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing with my kids is that they want to start playing again. Like we played last year once or twice, but now I bought them their own minis, and I got them their own dice and dice bags. And so we're probably going to sit down maybe this week or next week and start something up for the rest of the summer.
Yeah.
And even if it's like just 2 hours, like every couple of days, just get some adventuring done and get them into it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I mean, as long as you can keep their attention, that's the problem I discovered with younger than a certain age. The 14-year-olds, after the 8th hour, got a little tired.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally understand that. Now you've mentioned a few times, so we're gonna jump into it. You have a Twitch channel, and on it you do a few different things, and we'll talk about the first one, which is Qyjari's Curious Crafts.
Yes.
And I hope I pronounced it correctly. I tried it out a few times before we started recording, and I'm pretty sure I got it.
It's close enough.
Close enough. Okay.
It's Qyjari, but that's okay. It's a kind of a weird made up name anyway.
So with that crafting stream that you do on Twitch, what do you do?
Well, I create tabletop terrain on which to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Now, do you sell the terrain after you're done with it, or is it just that you're crafting it so that way other people can watch?
I just started opening commissions for anyone who would like to purchase a piece of terrain, but they are expensive and they take a ton of time. No, I keep all my terrain. I did give one away to a dear friend of mine, Joe, who co-hosts 3 Sheets One Shot with me on Friday nights, because he is heading to Gen Con and he's going to play Dungeons and Dragons there. And along with some other friends who are heading up to Gen Con, and they're going to play D&D using that terrain. So hopefully it'll get some exposure and some people interested. But it is a lot of work and very time consuming. I do plan on any commissions I get running them on the stream. So if someone wants a commission and they want to see how it was made, they can just go back and watch the VODs on YouTube or Twitch. So, no, I don't sell them. I have a stack of terrain around my D&D room and my stream studio and my craft room. They're kind of just in the way at this point. I did make a very large, one of my favorite is a giant mushroom village called Shademark, and I named it after one of the locations in Matt Mercer's world of Tel'Darai in the Feywild called Shademark. So that was a lot of fun, kind of designing how I pictured Shademark.
What, like, for crafting the terrain, like, how did you, like, what was it that made you want to start doing terrain? Was it just that you wanted like a more immersive game, or was it just that you wanted something like a creative outlet? Well,
I've always crafted. I've crafted since I was a teen, various things. I still craft handmade felt Christmas ornaments that I sell on Etsy. And so I have always enjoyed crafting. And I think it came about when I tried to price maps or try to look up maps, and I wanted some sort of way to tile maps. So I started out with just cardboard. And unfortunately, when you paint cardboard, if it's not very, very thick, it warps. So that I have a bunch of tiles of just cardboard sewers and exterior and dungeons, and they work great, but you have to tape them together on the back. It's very inconvenient. So I decided to move to foam insulation. It's just the 1/2-inch foam insulation. And I learned some techniques about gridding it, and my viewers laugh because we call it more dots. Putting the dots in every 1 inch so that I can connect them with lines and create a tile. And some of the tiles look like they're marbleized, and I play around with paints and sand, and I've just kind of tried a little bit of everything. But a lot of it was because I wanted, like you said, some way to immerse my players in the environment. The tiles seemed to be the best way, because then you could switch. They're only like 6x6 tiles. Then you could turn them or alter them. And then I even got to where they were reversible. You could flip them, and maybe that one is different from the one underneath. But I think that the immersion really helps the players pay attention, and they can kind of see, especially, for example, in Shademark, the giant mushrooms and rope bridges to get back and forth, and puddles on the ground to get around. They already start imagining what they're going to do with their next move.
what do you prefer to make when you're doing your terrain? Do you prefer to make like I know that some people focus on like towns or buildings, or some people focus on where you might have encounters, like with the giant mushrooms that you have, or some people do like forests with streams and whatnot. Like, is there something that you prefer, that you find yourself more drawn to when you're making terrain, or do you just kind of you're like looking forward to, like, well, today I'm going to do mushrooms and then tomorrow I'm going to do like a townscape or something like that?
I haven't really made a townscape yet because I hadn't perfected the ease for the buildings, but I recently decided to make stack stone out of foam, and with a recent build, and that worked out great. So I might do that for a future build. I know that I'm going to be working on a terrain called a flail snail terrain, and I'm basically inspired by part of my homebrew campaign that I've been working on, the first arc called Turning Point. There's a place in that campaign where the adventurers might run across a flail snail, and reading about the flail snail, it's kind of interesting because the residue they leave behind on the ground you can harvest to use for glass, as some sort of glass. It's like an iridescent looking glass. And I have the materials from a previous project to kind of create that iridescent glass. So I wanted to then create this flail snail terrain to kind of show what I was talking about with this. And my go-to terrain is outdoors because I believe that it gives me more flexibility with the ground and the design aspect of it. I can make it a trail or grass or trees or swamps. I've just recently made a swamp, rivers, bridges, any kind of little exterior things like that in the woods or in a grasslands. That's where I go to first. So I want to make this flail snail terrain and kind of experiment with crystals and this iridescent glass that it leaves behind. And that's my next project. That's what I'm starting tomorrow night.
Is there a piece where you're like, dang, I can't believe I created this. Look at how awesome it is.
I don't usually brag about my stuff. I am particularly proud of two projects. One of them was Shade Merc, like I described, the Mushroom Village. I think it turned out great, and my audience loved seeing it come together. I do have some things that I'm going to add to it for the future that I think will be fun, including some kind of glow-in-the-dark paints and black lighting. The second thing is a building, and it was a building that was featured on the Geek and Sundry website a while ago, a couple of years ago, called The Crow's Nest Inn and Tavern. An article was written about how I built it. It's just cardboard and popsicle sticks, but it has five layers. A tavern on the first floor is a tavern, and the meeting area to dine, and a fireplace. And then the next floor are 7 rooms with doors that work and windows. And then there's a secret stairs heading up to the 3rd floor, which is where a local guild meets, a secret guild meets. And then there's the attic, and then there's an upper attic that has a trap door and a window that opens that leads outside, and a shingled roof. And it's very intricate. It was one of the first things I built. We don't play on it very often because it was one of my first projects. So, but I would say those two I'm particularly proud of for the way they were built. I recently also built out of foam, which is what got me started on foam buildings, a castle for a one-shot that we ran back in, I can't remember if I think it was April. It's a huge wizard's tower, and it's made out of foam, and it also has 5 layers on it, and each layer can be removed, and there's a spiral staircase, and it's all stone. Well, it looks like stone, but it's actually foam.
Which materials? Because I'm always curious about when I see people that do the terrain and do the crafts, like, which materials do you like to use? Which materials do you find are harder to use when you're doing your crafting?
Well, wood is definitely the hardest one to work with unless you're using popsicle sticks, and they make great flooring because you can use the wood to cut in 2-inch strips. And the wood I use is about a 1/4 inch wide. So if you lay them out just right, you can actually see a 1-inch by 1-inch grid on the what's called the wood floor that you can use for movement. So I like that idea. I like the idea of having the 2-inch. It's kind of hard to describe on a podcast. It's like you want to show it to someone. It's like you alter them 2 inches, and then it looks like 1 inch. And then if they're only a 1/4 inch wide, then it takes 4 of those to build a 1-inch square. So anyway, wood is harder except for that flooring, just because it weighs too much, and you'd have to get wood tools and saws and jigsaws and things like that. And I have made some stuff, but I would say the easiest thing to work with, because it's more versatile, is the foam insulation. And I have a Proxxon wire cutter that I use for the big pieces, and that has really made my life a lot easier as well.
If somebody wanted to get started doing terrain, what would your advice be for them?
I would say don't be afraid to try anything. Go to your local hardware store and purchase, they're very inexpensive, a sheet of foam insulation. If you want the thicker stuff, I believe you can get it in a smaller piece, but to get your money's worth, you want to just get the 4-foot by 8-foot foam insulation, 1/2 inch, and they'll cut it down for you. They cut them down for me all the time. I get them in 2 feet by 4 feet sections, and then I build typically 2 feet by 2 feet terrain pieces, and that's kind of the standard size I find most easy to store and build on. It's not unwieldy. And then I would say just start carving. Just dig out, make a grid and dig out a river or dig out a quarry, or there's so much you can do. I used, for the longest time, just used the tip of a flathead screwdriver to dig out and draw on this foam, and then don't use spray paint. Just use a nice matte, either black or white, whatever, or sand color, whatever kind of terrain you're dealing with. I like black because it seeps into the cracks, and then it forms a little bit of a depth. Paint it, let it dry, and then start putting moss and rocks, and you can just do so much. Or you can take a sponge and paint brown to make a trail, or a green to make a grassland, and just add, you could just go to your backyard and get some pieces of wood and make a stack of logs, or I use an X-Acto knife to split those little logs in half and make a footbridge. You could just do so much with just stuff in your backyard, but that foam insulation really helps make a good foundation.
Awesome. I always love asking people who craft, like, where can people get started? Because you look at things and you just get so overwhelmed by, I could never do that. That's way out of my league of stuff. And it's just taking those first baby steps. It's always great to have people give advice on what they do, so that way people hopefully don't feel that way or take that little step.
Exactly.
So not only do you craft on your Twitch channel, but you also do campaign rating on your Twitch channel as well.
Yes, we are currently on the second arc of my story called Ammonrath. And the stream started out with just me, writing, and actually the writing part. And it was great. It was wonderful. I got a lot done, but it wasn't as interactive as I wanted. I really wanted the audience to participate and have a little more input into the story. And so just recently, for the second arc of the storyline, I introduced a co-host. My co-host is Joe from Riff and Rabble. They play D&D online on Friday nights, and he is wonderful. He is a great co-host. He brings in a lot of fun to the stream. He can read the chat faster than I can. And he's good with looking up stuff while I'm typing on the screen, because I always have the story up so the viewers can see what we're typing. And it's become more of a bullet point story, which is good because some of my players now watch the stream and I don't want to give too much away. But I do have the audience help with like the naming of an NPC or what kind of creature would live in the Underdark that I can throw at them at level 5, or what would the weather be like in this area of the world. I use Incarnate to draw all my maps. I have the Incarnate Pro, and so they all see the map of my world and the climate and the different areas and the time zones. So it's really a lot of fun just to get the audience's participation and what they come up with. I do have one audience member, my dear friend Rylan, who always tries to throw necromancers at me. But other than that, this world can't be full of necromancers, Rylan. It's a lot of fun. And we let anyone, you don't have to be a subscriber or anything, you just have to come on in and give us your 2 cents worth, and it might make it into the story.
How has it been with that interactive element now that you have that versus like the first part of the story where it was just you?
Well, when it was just me, I would try to be writing and glance over at chat to see if someone wanted to participate and add a feature or give a suggestion. But it was hard for me to concentrate on writing the paragraph I was working on. And then by the time I looked over at chat, it was already written and they'd already provided something. So it's nice to have Joe so he can kind of keep an eye on chat and keep me updated because he's on the Twitch also. His face and everything, voice is on there. So it's nice that he can say, hold on, they have an idea for this creature or this encounter or this puzzle or how they should traverse this area. And it's really great. I love it. And it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And it's so interesting to I guess have that, like, even just hearing about, because for a long time people make their stuff and it's like, I can't tell you anything about it. I can't let you know about it because then it'll ruin it. I want people to explore and be surprised by whatever they create, and now it's like you're having like this interaction with people where they're getting the input and interacting, and you're like, it's evolving into something that's just like a community like effort,
right,
essentially.
Right. And what's funny is the first arc of my story, my world is called Ammonrath. The first arc of Ammonrath, called Turning Point, the first and second chapters, which were, I think, my first through 4th episode on 3 sheets, 1 shot, were only about 2 or 3 sheets each. That was it. That just from what I wrote and just from what people provided. But once I sat down to edit on my own, separate from the stream, chapter 2 alone is probably 20 pages long now. So even though my viewers who might be playing these are getting a bit of a spoiler, there's a lot more to the story than they're seeing on the stream. And so, yeah, so when they come, like when my players come back and say, oh yeah, I remember you mentioned that part, then it's going to be completely different by the time they actually get to play that arc.
When you stream, between the crafting stream and this stream, like, do you prefer one over the other, or is it just that they're so different that it just gives you something like to break up like your stream of, okay, I did crafting and now I get to do something wildly different?
Yes and no. I was streaming my crafting on Friday nights as well, but I didn't have my producer, so I knew I'd have to find something to self-produce, which is not easy to do. If you're trying to run a very, very, very good quality show where you are on the screen, you don't want to constantly be looking over at checking chat and checking. You need to have good quality moderators, which I do. I have excellent moderators, but I needed someone like Drake on that show on Friday nights to do that, and I didn't have that because he has a life also. He doesn't want to always produce mom shows. I have him one night. That's good. So that's why I decided maybe try writing. Just get on myself and have both monitors in front of me and write on one and check it with the other. And it worked okay. But like I said, I really missed some of the chat. So I wanted a co-host to kind of kind of make noise during the quiet moments when I was trying to type or trying to look something up. And so that worked out great. And the reason why I also wanted to continue writing on Friday nights is starting this fall, we are going to be introducing a third show to my Twitch stream called D&D with the Banana Brothers. And again, this is my brothers from Florida online, and this is the story that they're going to be playing. So I'm getting that ready for them. We're on the second arc of that story, but they're going to be starting at the beginning on the first arc, which is it's not even done being edited yet, but I'm working on it. I think I'm on chapter 4.
Oh, that's going to be so much fun. And is it going to be a weekly D&D stream, or are you going to just do, every other week, or is it going to be just whenever people can, or?
We're going to start out with trying to do it once a week, and it'll follow my crafting show. So because Drake is one of my players. So my crafting show will run from 7 p.m. East until 8:30, and then from 9 o'clock until 11 o'clock. We'll play D&D. So we're switching. We're going to take a half an hour to switch gears and set stuff up, get the new overlay on the OBS, and start playing D&D. And it'll be online, and we're trying to work. That's why I wanted to take this summer we're trying to raise funds also to make sure that they have good quality microphones and cameras. Nothing I hate worse than trying to watch a game where they don't have really good volume on their microphones, or it sounds tinny, or you can't hear half the people. I wanted everyone to have a good quality microphone, and to be able. One of my brothers says, "Well, I can just use my laptop camera." I'm like, "No, you need a good camera." Like, no. So we're trying to raise funds for that, and that is going to start probably in October, and have the D&D overlay on it. That's what I'm working on, and I still have to work on the story. They're going to get as far as chapter 4 and be like, uh-oh.
It's going to be Game of Thrones. Instead of not having enough books, you'll be like, okay, we're just going off book now.
Yes, exactly. Well, and that's what's fun about writing a sandbox story. I'm not trying to write this linearly. Is that a word? Linearly?
Linearly?
Yeah, linearly.
Let's say that's a word.
It is a word now, sure.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to write it so that they have to follow the certain path. I mean, obviously, that's where it's going to lead them to the greatest riches. But if they decide to go off on their own, I'm trying to write little sniglets of where they could go, where they might go. And that's where this flail snail terrain comes in. They may not see this flail snail encounter in the first arc of the campaign, but it's ready if they do. And by the way, I'm giving away that flail snail terrain. Did I tell you that?
You didn't tell me that, but now you did.
I am giving it away. We are having a little bit of a push for subscribers on my Twitch channel and YouTube subscribers. So if I can reach 100 YouTube subscribers and 25 Twitch subscribers, I'm going to give it away. And you don't have to be a subscriber to win. You just have to watch the show, type in the code that we give, and you'll be entered. And I'm gonna give it away.
Before we wrap up things with you, Anne, you did mention there's something that you mentioned, and I believe you're part of a bigger network called Nerdsmith, and if you just want to talk about that for a moment or two, I'm totally cool with that.
Definitely. I am so proud to be a creator on Nerdsmith. I was introduced to Nerdsmith last fall during their Nerdsgiving. They asked me if I would be interested in being on their Nerdsgiving team to help support the Trevor Project. And of course I said yes. So during the month of November, it might have been October also, we had Hattober, and then we had Brovember. We raised a little over $250 for the Trevor Project on my stream. And I have a little stream. We average 12 viewers. I'm hoping to get more, but I was so excited about that. And then in February, they asked me to be a creator on the Nerdsmith team, and I was so honored and happy to say yes. So I have been a member of Nerdsmith since February, and recently participated in their subdrive and provided a bunch of bonus content. If you're a Nerdsmith subscriber, you get a bunch of bonus content, including watching the build for the Wizard's Tower that I described earlier that I built out of foam. And that campaign that went along with it is there too, that I did here in my D&D room. So yeah, no, Nerdsmith has been the best nerd family anyone could want, and I am so happy to be a part of it. And they do so much for the community of nerds and the community as a whole, actually.
That's awesome. And now we've made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Anne. And Anne, before we go, obviously, where is the best places that people can find you, follow you, check out your work, hang out, talk to you, anything under the sun?
Well, I am probably easily found on Twitter at Qyjari. I also have a Twitch, which is under Curious Crafts. My YouTube is Qyjari. And if you want to join my Discord, just go to my Twitch channel, and there is a link down in the panels below for Discord. We welcome any and all. Lurkers are allowed as well. And I would love to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on to not only talk like Dungeons and Dragons and Critical Role, but to also talk about like especially stuff where I think you may have been my first terrain crafter that I've ever talked to. And I love to learn about these things because it's something where I'm like, I'd love to do that, but time, money, children, projects. I mean, I hate doing their school projects.
Oh,
that they come home with like that. That's my wife's realm of, oh, I have to make the Lincoln Memorial. Okay. We've got some foam that's over here and she's going to cut it into columns and print out a picture of Abraham Lincoln. And there you go.
Perfect.
Like that's like, that's the extent of like what we do. But at the same time, it's like, that'd be kind of cool to make terrain. But then it's like, I don't have anywhere to do that or anything, so
then you gotta store it.
Yeah, so I would never use it. So but it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you for having
to
me.
talk about absolutely, and I hope that the D&D game works out and that people tune in, and I got to go over to your channel and give you a follow and everything else. Absolutely. And so everybody go check out Anne's work. I'll have the links in the show notes and on the website. So definitely go give her a follow.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.